Good evening, everyone. This is Traveling Molly's reading series. Your open mic and featured readers tonight. Our featured readers are Kim Addonizio and Adam Henze. We will start. Good evening, everyone. This is Traveling. We'll start out as usual with myself, and tonight, just for our regulars out there in YouTube land, Nina Corwin is sick, so she's not going to be able to be here tonight. So I'll be leading the charge of poets, and looking forward to a really good night. We've got a lot of open mic readers and some great features, so thank you all for being here. I'm going to start out, just so nobody else has to be first, with a poem that's, because of the season, it's a poem called It's Thanksgiving. I actually was looking through some poems and I was looking for a different one, and I found this one. I forgot I had written this last year. So I'll read it. It's almost new to me. It's Thanksgiving. Again, the floors are swept, the table's set. My mother's ashes rest on my bookshelf, surrounded by poetry. This was her holiday, preparing for the crowd of cousins, nieces, and nephews. Now it is our turn to roast the turkey, make the sweet potatoes. I start this day early with coffee and Kerouac, rereading. See the 1956 world unchanged, angels rioting in the streets as my sons feel their world today on a brittle crust of hate and sadness. Jack sad with his eggs and toast, knowing we're all gonna die, and that's okay. Living is every day. We only die once. I am grateful in that knowing, and thankful for this day, with a nod to my mother's recipes, her turkey stuffing. When my time arrives, I ask for my ashes to be surrounded by books, everlasting, and a small taste of bourbon. Last night we watched an old video, my wife singing, 27 and pregnant, so many every days, and this Thanksgiving. Well, thank you. Let's see, who shall we start with tonight? Sarah Ray, you want to start us out?
Sure, I'll be happy to start us off. So it's just a great honor to be here with Kim and Adam, and thanks Al and Bill for this great series. This is a poem after Ray Gonzalez. It's called Praise the Surgeon, Praise the Anesthesiologist, Praise the IV Nurse. Praise the glamorous surgeon as she glides into my prep room right before the show begins, still in her fashionable trench coat with the latest styling belt, having just arrived from the outside, her long blonde hair coiffed just right, no tired bags under her eyes showing how she's been up since 4 a.m. with no food nor sustain. Her bright pronouncement, "Are you ready to get this over with?" as she uses a Sharpie-like marker to label the left side, the surgical side above my breast, thankfully with no hesitation. And no, she's good, has won awards for physicians under 40, so poised and lost someone a little over half my age. Yet I'm not sure I trust her confidence to calm doubts raised by the anesthesiologist, who has just left the room minutes and praise him, that older, grumpier, still attractive anesthesiologist. His like demeanor, his no-holds-barred declaration, well, I'm not going to give her that antibiotic if she's allergic to Cipro. Her, meaning me, he will not be swayed by the hot young surgeon, will damn sure wait for pharmacy to weigh in and give the go-ahead before he pushes drugs into my veins. If circumstances were different, I could date this man, at least have a titillating conversation with him in a bar, the kind that doesn't go anywhere but still revs you up. We'd talk into the wee hours, sing along to 70s hits on the jukebox, Gladys Knight, Linda Ronstadt. We'd trade phone numbers, write them sloppily on gum wrappers that we'd lose the next day, or misprogram them into our phones before locking our lips in juicy kisses. And praise the IV nurse. Yes, that one, the one who sticks in the needle several times before she gets it right. 2 or 3 times on the back of my hand, finally settling on my tender inner arm. There are tattoos on her own arms and a date, sometime in 2007, either the birth or death of a lover or child, reminding us how we all need a second chance, how great pain can come with great beauty. And I'm thinking about my mother and her small veins and how nurses would always have to dig deep for them when they drew blood. I know the needle sticks will bruise me as they always do, staining my skin for days afterward, transforming black to purple, then melding to green, pink, yellow, lavender, rose. Like the leaves outside, their veins burnished by the autumn sun, golden light illuminating the kaleidoscopes of their tender flesh, vibrant hues smoldering, glowing with fiery intensity as they fall and crumble to ash, becoming one with the earth. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Okay, who shall go next? Patrick Reardon. Nice to see you here, Patrick.
It's good to be here. I wasn't sure didn't expect to be so early, but I'll go ahead. This is I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to listen to everybody. There's a lot of poetry talent here. This is a poem called "All Prophets Are Failures," and it's like something that dropped out of some book that they didn't put in the Bible, if you know what I mean. All right. All prophets are failures. All birds failures, having to land, needing to land. Even with all the coasting on gentle or brisk breezes, calm interludes, even in storm, having to, needing to land, needing to, having to die, pigeon carcass on the snow. Prophets die after failing. They fail to glad slappers, backsliders, unlisters, stolid mud stickers. Prophecy winds down, limp spring, the half-life of zealotry. Alarm clock unwinds, bell-less. Flight is temporary, gravity and grave rain. Still, flight is required. No one prophesies a fact list. No one prophesizes the dawn. The prophet spasms his atom of truth, spins it into the maelstrom of other atoms, and sometimes it is a snowflake on a wet sewer grate, and other times critical mass and explosion, and then pieces to be picked up. Still, prophecy is required. Bomb is coherent. Then failed, it powers instant chaos. Bomb fails, bird fails, prophet fails. The coherence of failure is the consistency of chaos. Prophesy for Herod like a trained seal. Prophesy like Daniel, like Joseph. Unriddle the riddle until the next one. Unenigma. The Big Bang was a failure, and the cross and the garden and creation, tree tempt, entropy, unheld center, darkness in the third hour, the third day, and emptiness. Ascend in flight. Flames ascend over foreheads. Foreheads fail. Visions are faulty, murky. Mysteries are failed logic. True are dreams empty of plot, failures of storytelling. The baby's breath is prophecy. In the end, it fails. Thank you.
Very nice. In the end, it fails. Um, yeah, I want to acknowledge all the folks who are watching in YouTube land. So welcome and thanks for being out there. I watch people, our YouTube stream is always interesting because it's one by one that people keep adding to the count. So welcome everyone. Next, let's see. Shelly Nation, haven't heard you here in a while.
Hey there. So I'm going to read an older piece. This is 10 Hours to Tulsa. Her dreams were like fantasies, knotting up in intestinal tract thoughts, shoving painkillers into painful memories. She washed them clean with bottled spirits and kept driving. Remembered images drew themselves like maps along the dashboard, each intense pattern, neglecting forensic evidence of her past. She wiped the dust clean and kept driving. Each spoke and the steering wheel bent along her fingers, spiraling into rows of trailer park dreams. It seemed she would never get out, wondered why she would ever return. Her redneck philosophy did not meld with her civilized tongue. Remembered her father asking, "What does Chicago have that you can't get here?" She ground the gears into fifth and kept driving. 10 hours to Tulsa, 10 hours left to scream along the asphalt, fling her desires out the open window, watching remnants of her father's dream skid off the highway into mud-filled ditches. She only wishes she didn't belong. One more. They're all kind of short. I'll just do one more. Reuben. His broad shoulders held up his neck that rotated impulsively toward his son's girlfriends might miss a great piece of ass, tight mini skirts from early 60s fashion. His feet lodged in pointed cowboy boots held up his 6'2" frame, shoes filled to the tips with newspapers ever since that freight train wheel severed the tips of his toes. His bulky belt buckle held up his trousers with pockets perfect for housing flasks filled with gin, whiskey, rum to numb his mind of witchery wife who found holy water wastelands. No more dancing and drinking on a Saturday night, not for her. His 55 Chevy drove him to the bars to drink away sobriety, daughter waiting in the front seat at night, feet barely reaching the pedals, making sure daddy gets home safe. Thanks.
Wow, thank you. Yes. The who shall go next? I don't know if you can tell, we're going kind of boy-girl here. Let's see. Paul Smith, you haven't been here in a long time.
No, it's been a while. It's nice to see you.
Welcome.
I have a poem, and it's called Crescent. The crescent wrench is a great tool. It's adjustable, so you can make it fit any size hex nut, your carburetor, your small diameter threaded pipes, just by tweaking the knurl. It's better by far than channel locks, or your Craftsman 30-piece socket set with a 3/8" drive. Why aren't we adjustable, like the crescent wrench? Wouldn't it be cool, the symbol for the mysterious Mideast, symbolizing us? Instead, we are fussy and touchy, getting bent out of shape if someone calls us names like dipsticks, or mollycoddles, or clodhoppers. Who really cares? Sticks and stones, right? Let's adjust. Let's be multifaceted. The crescent wrench has a big, heavy end and a good grip, so you can clobber someone over the head if you don't like him. His brain will hemorrhage, he'll bleed a lot, and probably die, like they do in Turkey.
Wow, thank you. Let's see. Patty McMillan, Patricia McMillan, what do you got for us?
All right, I have two. And one, I didn't look up the page, sorry. It's in the last after hours. What page am I on? And I was very impressed. I just want you to know, Al, how impressed and graceful I am that this was on one page, because it's kind of a one breath poem. It's kind of long, but and you can't see it because I've got that fuzzy thing on. What insomnia is like. In the third world country that is my aging body, night is falling, flickering streetlights try to illuminate the desert, but there's only one bright spot in the whole town, and that's the gasoline superstation. And I'm pulling to the pump in the rattle-trap car that is my brain. I'm popping open the lid over the gas cap, sticking the nozzle into the filler, listening for the whoosh of liquefied bodies of extinct plants and animals into my tank. More than a sigh, less than a buzz, hearing too the night sounds, cicadas, thunder. I'm brushing away mosquitoes, idly gazing at the piles of overpriced spares, plastic jugs full of blue windshield cleaning fluid, pyramids of propane tanks arranged against the vast plate glass expanse of the convenience store, and past them at the display of Slim Jims in their red plastic packages. The cashiers making small talk with truckers in dirty bill caps. I'm just waiting, not quite forgetting where I am, thinking guiltily about the high price of sleep, the world shortage of sleep, those poor and displaced people who clutch empty gas cans to their chests on the front pages of the world's newspapers, wondering when humanity will reach peak sleep, and thinking how I am so fortunate, and yet I too valve it off automatically when the tank is full, wondering how long it will take and whether I have enough yet to get to the next exit. And
Thank you.
thank you.
Oh, you have one more. I'm sorry.
I'll read fast.
Oh, it's okay.
This is another poem. I call it a poem. Our friend Dave is reincarnated as a bedbug. The three of us are having cocktails together via text message with occasional photographs. One of us is in a rainstorm. I love thunderstorms, she texts, while another is watching a cicada emerge from the last of the practical brown husks in which it spent its first 17 years, unfurl its shiny Tinkerbell wings. They seem to like the underside of my patio chairs, she texts. I'm making an epic margarita with celery bitters and cucumber shrub, texting a shot of liquid, the lime green of cicada wings in a martini glass on my kitchen counter beside a half-finished sheet of capsules I didn't think to hide. What drugs are you doing? The first friend texts from inside the rainstorm. The other two of us can't feel or hear. And I reply, probiotics for my dog. We're talking in short about anything other than Dave, our friend who died in Georgia a month ago before any of us could get there to say goodbye. We are all grieving, our separate and individual griefs intertwined, though not quite touching, for the man we met in high school, smoked pot and made summer theater and planned our lives in Chicago with, before he came out and moved to Georgia with his nearly blind brother and Mexican-American lover. The one drinking champagne on her suburban patio texts a short video of the newborn cicada trying to fly. We all say, he was too young. But what we mean is that we are too young, though Dave isn't our first classmate to die. Then the one in the storm says, do you think it's Dave? Meaning the lightning, the floods. And I say, what, the cicada? And then she texts the story of when the corporate interviewer asked Dave if he was gay, something we all agree wouldn't happen today. And he replied, gay as a bedbug in a rug. And at that moment, we all three hear Dave's voice, his wicked belly laugh. We feel his presence, as sure as I taste the salty sweet cucumber shrub I made for this one special occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Thanks for the call out to After Hours. I think everyone knows that I published the journal After Hours, and we also do books. For anyone looking for the perfect Christmas present, the After Hours Press and Chicago Literary Hall of Fame have published an anthology of Chicago poetry called Wherever I'm At, and should check it out. Check it out. You can find it on Amazon, or you can find it through the After Hours website or Literary Hall of Fame website. It's a huge collection of Chicago poets. So let's see, who shall we have? Well, we haven't seen his face yet here on the Zoom side of the reading, but Eric Allen Yankee.
Hello.
There he is.
How you can see me.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It's great to be here and listen to everyone. Just have two short poems for the unhoused. The first one is Staring into the Dark. The man was threadbare, with a cigarette hanging from his loose mouth and a gnarled hand rolling fingers into a fist. His hair was matted and his eyes were sunken. Without asking, I knew he'd been staring into the darkness. Perhaps I hoped he'd find his breath so that I could find my own. I knew then that our fates were intertwined as we both sought shelter from our fears. And this last one is Brick Walls. I've seen so many young people sitting against a brick wall, backpacks with holes, shoes with soles flopping, and desperate eyes searching. No home in sight, only wordless passerby, passengers on the train to a world without understanding. Just more brick walls and more young people to blend in with the bricks. Thank you.
Thank you. Come again. Glad to have you here. Let's see. Next, let's hear from Gabriel Costello. I know you've been here before. It's been a while.
Hi. So this first poem that I'm going to read is an ekphrastic poem based on a painting by Robert Matta in the University of Illinois Art Museum. After Le Hors des Mots, Le Ultimate, L'Ennemi Intérieur, Le Memory Cosmica by Robert Matta. The future has no memory. Eyes draw toward the faceless skull, cattle wire fence, prophet sent through a laced sky, spectator policies, a century's worth of rain, predictable sky backing on bone, lines like wires across the sky, public transit seating, a butcher's block, land slid towards a coast. Water washes the window. The wiper covers a geometry, exhausted sky. Slowly one bleeds into another. Muscle blends into a bruise. Right angle holds a bird. Wing indecipherable from wire. Not dark enough to be the ocean. A triangulated sky. Windows fade into each other. A breathable grid. Thinking during the execution that any mark I make is beautiful. Closer to the bottom, a dirt color, an ingrown eye. And then I just have one other poem. The title is Birds Dream of a Windowless World. On wires, their eyes, like a starless, unpolluted sky, track a small mammal through tall grass. Wings repeat until flight. Claws loose their grip. Overhead, formations towards the curve of the earth. A hip bone stuck in a doorway. A precautionary step. Dogs dream in rabbit spines. In a far country, a broad-shouldered sky, lightly polluted, measured against my brother in the doorway. Absences accumulate to a withdrawal, knock-on effects. Years later, he constructs walls, 2x4 slung over collarbone, stuck under leathered skin, muscled precision, tick marks painted over by a new tenant, prairie burn, pre-spring, snowless winter, dead grass over dead grass, wife beaters covered in sweat. Men leave dented old-style cans in the former overgrowth, charred earth, no overnight storage. I dream arrhythmically. At night, I sweat through the sheet.
Wow. Thank you, Gabriel. Let's move ahead. Sarah Sarai, are you ready?
Sure, I'm going to read one poem. This is from the book that Nina had blurbed, so it's from 2009. Anyway, as Xantippe whispered into idle Socrates' ear, and Xantippe was his wife. Engineering. This has to do with mathematical divination of earth and metal, bearing us through the daily occupation of life, which is preparing for death, which is the true occupation of life. Engineering. This has to do with compression and strength so elegant, tresses are unfazed by heavy progress across spans calculated to hold march of elephants in time. Engineering. This has to do with sweet Ophelia's schematically heartbreaking death by distraction, or alienation, or a branch snapping and a river sucking her in with lust. Engineering. This has to do with shattered parts revealed in a blueprint of the draftman's conception of wretched sorrow as a workable means to create us whole.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for making sure we leave space at the end for our features. And tonight's features, I have to say again, Adam Henze. Adam, I'm saying your name right, correct?
You are, you did great.
And Kim Addonizio, both very special features. So all you folks in YouTube land, make sure to hang around. Next in our open mic, Doug Van Hooser.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to read two relatively short poems. First is entitled Hip Boots. No need to repeat mistakes. Their ghosts sit behind me, lie next to me in bed, hand me tissues. The past, unable to pass, gnaws at my wires, cause the sparks, flickering images, short-term outages. A person, an event, something I said or should have said become loud colors. Shout, remember me. Whispers, I can't elude or elucidate, echo in my mind's cavern. Water rushes over the path of slick stones I trek. Unable to decide which side of the river to fish from, I stand in the river and shiver as the water rises over my knees, above my waist, surrounds my chest where the heart's metronome thumps. Today's lyrics give way to the chorus I can't escape. And the second poem, it's entitled Crabapple Pips. Every day in my November, the sun arrives late, leaves early. The wind whistles a dissonant tune. I rake the souls of leaves. For some reason this year there are no acorns. Chipmunks must wonder, why me? As they bore their burrow deeper. The shades of brown are questions I don't want to hear. The stoic oaks give no hints. The mums oblivious. Frost has sunk its teeth, snowflakes pirouette. I wander through this denouement, a sparrow still finding seeds. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. Thanks for being here tonight. Let's see, who should we bring up? Deborah Edelman, just back from San Francisco, back in Chicago.
Yes, over my jet lag, sort of. I taught a long class today, so glad to be here. And thank you for all these wonderful poems. I'm going to read a poem that I've read here before, but I'm reading it because I'm happy. It's just come out in the Rockville Review. And as I always say here, I identify more as a prose writer than a poet. So getting a poem published is always a very happy occasion for me. So I'm going to read Rebound. What I loved was that you had a front 40 and a back 40 too. That you said I belonged on your land, that I belonged in your bed, that you were happy making the bed together after we had lain in it. What I loved was all that quiet, though sometimes I could hear the cows bellowing across the road, the buzzing of daredevil crop dusters flying crazy loops over the fields, showering poison, the naked snow angels in the backyard and the hot tub afterwards, the Japanese lilac blossoming in your front yard. What I loved was our loving in the hot tub on the porch overlooking the yard and the Japanese lilac. I loved that you didn't argue, that we did not have children together, that I only saw you for a few days every few weeks. What I loved was the way you savored my arrival, the way you slowly emerged from your house to greet me and take my suitcase, that moment of hesitation before you appeared in the driveway that told me you couldn't believe your good fortune that I had decided to return. What I loved was the milkweed field all gone to seed in the back 40 at the end of summer, the shriveled pods like dried up canaries spilling their guts to the wind, that you loved the lupin, that the Carner blues fed on the lupin. What I loved was that the Carner blues overwinter in Wisconsin, that you lived in Wisconsin, being with you in Wisconsin, riding behind you on your Buell to Rudolph. What I loved was the wind in my face, the 2-lane roads, our balancing together, my arms around your waist, the way you walked, your back straight, purposeful, your startling blue eyes. What I loved was picking apples from your tree, the snowshoes, the wood stove, the garden, the spikes of Andean amaranth taking root in the glacial till of your central Wisconsin ridge, the Incan purple poking up between the peppers, tomatoes, onions, squash, watering the garden, the sunshine glinting rainbows through the spray, the smell of wet soil, the crazy way you planted anything anywhere and it all grew, or mostly anyhow. Thank you.
And you say you're not a poet.
Well, I identify more as a prose writer, and I'm honored to be amongst all you poets. And I thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to remind everyone again that we like to pass a virtual hat for our features. So show your love and appreciation for them sharing their time with us tonight and being part of our reading. So I'm posting a link. It's a PayPal link, both in the chat on Zoom and on YouTube. Okay, next up, Bob Chicoine. Are you ready, Bob?
I am now. Got a few shorties that'll come in under the wire. Anyone remember trout fishing in America, Shorty, in the book? The original Second Amendment read, "The right of the people to bore the bejesus out of other people shall not be infringed." But then Alexander Hamilton said, well, seems fair, but maybe only with the consent of the bored. Which James Madison took the floor and went on about how boredom at the hands of one's fellow man can numb the mind into a kind of bliss. To which Thomas Jefferson submitted that the word bejesus should be excised, or folks might think we're evangelicals. Then a representative from the Carolinas opined that slaves should only be allowed to be 3/5 board, at which George Washington threw up his arms and said, "Oh, friends, let's just do something about guns instead, short and sweet, that no one will ever notice." Our suburb is so law-abiding and abiding in every way that sometimes when the silence goes on too long at night or during a snowfall or when all of us are deep in our backyards, deep in thought, the village police turn on their sirens to keep us from finding we have fallen in the thrall of something. Chicago has become so dangerous, even the ghost of Al Capone has gotten the hell out of here to go live on a lakefront property in Kentucky. At night, when the sky is clear, he watches the shooting stars. Plummeteers. Someone put a banana peel at the bottom of the almost bottomless abyss, lest anyone from above think, "Oh, hell yeah, I'm going to nail this landing." Anapest. The CPA who writes poetry to relax wonders how many years into his retirement it will take before he stops counting syllables. Taxidermy. If you make a pillow of my body, I will tickle you with feathers. If you burn me down to smoke, I will bring you fairer weather. If you dress me as a scarecrow, I will banish all the buzzards. If you hook me up into a rug, I will tie your room together. Finally, buttery. As I was dying, my life passed before me like a movie. And though the pacing was slow and with half-developed characters and holes in the plot, the popcorn tasted so good, I was just glued to the screen.
Okay. Next up, Susanna Lane. Haven't seen you in a long time.
I was out of the country for quite a while. So thank you. It's a pleasure to read here tonight, especially as, Kim, you won't remember this, but I was in your workshop years ago at Port Townsend, and I learned a lot. So these poems are from my forthcoming chapbook, like this. The 26 titles are all similes, and they progress through the alphabet. I'm going to read you R, S, and T. They're all short. Like rain washed into the river, we are absorbed. Like a branch torn from a tree on the riverbank, we rush downstream. Like birds singing into the 2 a.m. dark, we are limited in what we can say, but required to speak. Like a bell rung only once a day, we call to others, we call to you. It is a long way from where the river begins to where it joins another, but unless rain becomes flood, we cannot change course, nor arrive. We are always on the way. Like the river rising, we gather speed and force as we go. Everything nourishes us. We bear everything on our backs. Like snow in early spring, the curled leaves of the first tulips hold snow like tasting spoons. The calendar has been flipped back a full month. Though the snow melts by next day, we do not move forward. Snowdrops still blooming in every garden. Tulips not even in bud. Still, at the end of the block, a mother and her small daughter hang Easter eggs on fragile branches, flecks of color in a monochrome print. And finally, like talking to the dead, they do not answer. Freed from social distancing rules, they gather at the river, catch up on news from neighbors, parents, grandparents, children. The boatman is delayed, but they are content to wait in each other's company. I imagine that river like ours, brown and mucky, whispering past dry grasses drained of color. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna Link. Welcome back home. And I think I've got everybody except we have for one more in our open mic. And so to close out the open mic before we bring up Adam Henze and Kim Addonizio, we'll have Pablo Ataballo. Pablo is there. I know he's there. Pablo, you have to unmute. There you go.
Thank you. I'm here. Thank you so much, Susanna. That was a beautiful reading. And I have just two for you. So I'm really hoping that my internet holds out, otherwise my face will go away, but I'll keep reading. The first one is Leave a Light On. I've become a connoisseur of roadside hotels. The mini fridge, the kitchenette. In Kentucky, there's a Turkish rug in the lobby of a Days Inn, hand-knotted red wool caked in cement dust from work boots. In Tennessee, the centerpiece of geraniums is delivered daily. Sunrise orange pinks under deep green leaves set on a round walnut table. But the water pressure is weak in Alabama, and all 3 little bottles are conditioner. And I say, this will not define my day, but it does. My mother calls and we don't mention sarcoma, and she says she's bought me shampoo, and my sister has apologized and that she feels fine. I fear her health is failing. What is failing? Like a motor fails, like a bridge fails. I fear my mother dying. And how did she know I needed shampoo? Once in La Paz, at a retreat for the School of Tourism, a group of Cañari women laid out a feast on red woven runners over patchy grass, cheese, fruits, lima beans, purple fingerling potatoes, sweet corn. A woman named Carmelina picked up some grapes and threw them into the open field for the birds, she said. So the Pachamama sees how we take care of them like she takes care of us. And thank you. The Pachamama is the Earth Mother in Cañari, Quechua. And the last one I have for you is Elegy Unfinished on Mother's Day. The only thing I have to say is Aubrey on the eve of his birthday. Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, Pablo, you cut out a bit, but thank you. Thank you. Those poems.
Sorry, I tried.
I know. The best we can do with technology. So that ends our open mic. I want to thank everyone. This is a really nice, really beautiful group of people and poems. And before we move into our featured readers, I just want to remind everyone again about our virtual hat that's being passed around. The links are in the chats. And to everyone out there in YouTube land, thank you for being here. And now we're gonna start our features out tonight with Adam Henze, Dr. Adam Henze. And Adam, I understand you were from Oak Park. Were you part of the spoken word club in Oak Park?
Oak Park? I'm not from Oak Park. I'm from Indiana, and I did my undergrad in Kentucky, and then I've been living here in Indiana for the last 10 years. I've been around Chicago a lot, but
okay. Well, I was misinformed about that, but
maybe somebody looks like me. I don't know.
No, well, maybe because you look like Dan Sullivan, or the way Dan Sullivan used to look. Anyway, so tonight, Dr. Adam Henze is a researcher, an educator, spoken word artist, and has shared his work in over 30 states, as well as Puerto Rico, Canada, England, Ireland, and United Arab Emirates. He is co-director of Slam Camp, a summer writing academy for teenage poets, and founding director of Power of a Sentence, a prison literacy program in Indiana. Adam lives in Indianapolis with his fiancee, Siren, and 2 many dogs. So welcome, Adam.
The dogs might co-feature with me because they're wrestling in the hallway, so we'll see how it goes. I'm going to start with a poem from my book, written in the dish pit. This is called People I Could Do Without. It's after comedian George Carlin. I don't know if there's any George Carlin fans out there. He had his own list of people he could do without. Some of his examples were middle-aged guys named Skip and proctologists with poor depth perception. So that was his list. So here is my list of people I could do without. Web-footed science instructors who teach creationism. Fat guys with band-aids on their nipples. Pshaw girls who squint like the sun is in their eyes. Roadkill cleaners who belong to the Dead Puppet Society. Dip-spitting dudes with an affinity for truck nuts. Drug dealers that chit-chat. Shopping mall Santas with urinary tract infections. Roller derby ex-girlfriends who feel compelled to check you. Anyone who's ever quoted Donald Rumsfeld. Carnival barkers who scrub blood off of a hacksaw. So I am going to do something a little bit different tonight. As you said in my bio, I'm a researcher. I work at Indiana University, but I am in the process of breaking up with the academy. But I wanted to share a few pieces from my dissertation. And before you log off, I did something called poetic inquiry in my dissertation. I approached the field as a poet. So my dissertation is a hybrid text of autoethnographic narratives and poems, all about writing workshops. And with Kim being the other feature tonight, I thought it'd be kind of interesting to share some of my works about writing workshops, because I know that is something that some people in the room are notable for. So this is a poem about the stigma that's present in my writing workshops in maximum security women's prison. This is called The Circle. Tonight, Hella reads a poem to the son she's accused of killing. And Amora says she wishes she could become that brave. I say, let's start with where this poem is successful. Not to overshare, Emma says, but that's the type of writing that makes your butthole pucker. Yuriko disagrees with Audre Lorde. She says poetry has to be a luxury when you only get to sip it once a week with your commissary Pepsi. Once 2 students were kicked out of the course for humping each other on a stolen tarp in the chapel staircase. COs combed through every poem, wondering where they learned that at. Each clash, I shake every hand because maybe I sound like the last man that reprimanded them. Not to sound scary, I wince, but Mrs. C says she'll shut us down if you're in the hall without a pass. Raven escaped from prison once and worries she doesn't have any stories good enough to share. In the circle, sometimes you start crying when you stumble over a line. I made you a painting, Electra said, pointing at the hues out the window. She shakes her head at the power lines like, why oh why, something man-made, gotta mess with my sky. So this next one is a little bit longer. I run a writing academy for high school age writers who are into the like hippity hop and spoken word stuff. We call it Slam Camp. So we've had students from over 30 states come to our camp. We had a student from China, and we had a student from Denmark, I believe. And it is just like a really awesome experience, because when you're a high school writer, often you don't have a community, and then you like come and you're like around poets who really have the same kind of values and outlook, and also kind of feel like they don't have a community. So I wanted to make that a focus of my dissertation. So this one's a little bit more complex than the last poem. I talk about a component in hip hop called remixing in my dissertation. So a lot of my research is a remix. So this is a remix of 2 interview transcripts, a handwritten note, an Instagram post, and I basically blended it up with my own writing to create a poetic narrative. So you might hear me switching characters, but this is basically just kind of telling you about the magic of Slam Camp and some of the lessons that I was surprised that my students learned there. On the first day of Slam Camp, students were instructed to arrive at the student union and search for the registration table. All the other camps had registration tables too: golf, tennis, basketball, gymnastics, hockey, baseball, soccer, swimming, and volleyball. These tables seemed to attract a sea of teens in identical athletic shorts and crew cut t-shirts. At the Slam Camp table, the counselors like to play a game called Spot the Poet. In the sea of Nikes and Adidas apparel, we saw green hair and Doc Marten boots, eyebrow piercings and sleeve tattoos, cut sleeves and ripped jeans. Some students waited for their parents to leave before changing out of their boys' jeans and into skirts. These were students who showed up to the Slam Camp table with a suitcase, bedroll, and a backpack filled with books. "Look," Sierra DeMulder said, the co-director of Slam Camp. She was pointing to a group of remaining students who attended the year before. "They walk differently." She was right. The year before, they were all slouched shoulders and pigeon toes. Just a year later, our students walked with a confident stride. Sierra wrote a poem about the lessons that she learned from our campers. 5 things you should know about being a poetry Slam Camp counselor. 1. When the campers arrive, sweaty and nervous, and you meet them for the first time, they will be exactly as you imagine them. As if out of your own yearbook, there will be a blurry masterpiece, a paint-by-memory mosaic of every fountain, water fountain drowning, drama club captain, fallen asleep in physics but nobody noticed ninjas. When they tell you their names, you will have to stop yourself from saying, "I know." 2. The other campers that will surround you in the dining hall at lunch will wear sweatbands, cleats, and sports bras. They will be significantly and visibly stronger than you, but will surprisingly eat smaller portions. You will bond over this sacred heartbeat of creativity. What makes you different makes you special. You will silently acknowledge that you and your campers are the only ones in this hall carrying books instead of baseball bats, although both are equally dangerous. 3. You will try and fail to describe your love for poetry, that confused polygraph in your chest that dances for nothing but truth in an ugly dress. You will realize you don't have to tell them anything. 4. Show them. Let them sit in that stubborn silence until one of them raises their hands. Let them find the hook. Let them feel the pulling. Let them reel in the fishing line of their voice. Let them cry. Let them push. Let them shake that jammed vending machine. You put in the money, but they got to earn the treat. 5. When you huddle at night with the campers to share each of your favorite moments of the day, you secretly hope one of them will say you. But when it is her turn, the one with the smallest hands, and she tells you that it is her first time crying in 3 years, and she's actually proud of herself, your heart becomes a starfish, growing back its legs. When I initially started collecting data for this dissertation, my plan was to talk about lectures and lessons from Slam Camp. I planned on analyzing the poems of Slam Camp alumni to explore the craft and conventions that students learn in the workshops. But when I interviewed students years after their camp experiences, they admitted to me they couldn't really remember the content of any of our academic sessions. The lessons they learned were more ambiguous. Maya said her favorite memory was when we would dress in silly outfits just to make the campers laugh. She said she remembered the late night ciphers in the dorm and the jokes told in the cafeteria. Maya told me the silliness of Slam Camp helped her prepare to be a resident advisor in her dorm in college. She learned to lift spirits with inside jokes. She built community by sharing photos on Instagram. Slam Camp was a space to leave affirmations for one another. We left digital messages on social media and handwritten messages on sticky notes in the lecture hall. I kept my note from Maya, where she noted the lessons she learned taking silliness seriously. I like that you are so pragmatic and professional and personal at the same time. You are so extremely intelligent, and I'm very, very grateful that you are one of the wonderful people running this camp. Follow your dreams. Every year, the counselors concluded Slam Camp by writing affirmations on the whiteboard for students. One message read, "Who you are here, you are everywhere." If there's any lesson about literacy to learn, it's that we encourage campers to fill the spaces around them with affirmations. One student left Slam Camp and had the word "speak" tattooed across her wrist. On an Instagram post, she said, "It's reminding me to speak up, that my voice deserved to be heard, and all the wonderful things I've learned and chains I've had at Slam Camp. Thank you for helping me realize my power." At the end of every day of Slam Camp, we invited the students and counselors to circle up in a central space. Every person received a turn and was invited to give their daily testimony. One student, who I'll call Sophie, said they learned a different lesson sitting next to their peers. They said some students in the circle had visible self-harm scars. Some were vocal about their experience with drug use and sexual assault. Seeing an incredible breadth of experiences, Sophie said, gave themselves a wider sense of empathy. There was something to be said about the catharsis of Slam Camp. Sophie said to suddenly be in that space and to be able to let it all in, it was so cleansing. Well, this is gross, but I want to say it was like squeezing an emotional zit. While some stories were harder than others, Sophie pinpointed the values of hearing such stories. I learned a lot about resilience. I listened to a lot of poems that were hard to listen to, and I found a way to be okay with that existing in the world and finding a way to deal with that. I asked my student what their ultimate takeaway from Slam Camp was. Though Sophie was their chosen pseudonym, I think it's important to mention that this student's preferred name changed from year 1 to year 3. I asked them what Slam Camp taught them about affirmation. Sophie said, "I'm a lesbian, I'm non-binary." But being able to say that without flinching at myself, you know what I mean? It was a lot easier. It was a straight self-esteem booster. It was a lot easier to look at yourself in the mirror and say, this is who I am, and I'm not going to apologize for it. As a display of faith between us, I decided to use line breaks to transform the interview transcript into a poem called "I Can Take the Bus Alone." Slam Camp is a whole week-long affirmation of what our worth is. You are talented, you are knowledgeable, you deserve good things, you deserve friendship and love and warmth and food and sleep and everything like that. I literally attribute it to Slam Camp that I can get on planes alone because I'm much more secure. I can take the bus alone. I can take the train alone because even if somebody does look at me weird or catcalls me, I can just keep on walking. I can just go straight through it. Thank you so much. I'm going to do 2 more quick ones, back to some regular poems, and then that'll be my time. I want to say thank you all so much for attending tonight. You could be anywhere and you are here. So this is a poem that I wrote in a writing workshop in Washington, D.C. My friend was leading the workshop, and he had this process where he would say, like, make a list of cars or make a list of cartoon dogs, and you would make a list and then try to circle one that sticks out to you, and then you would focus on that, and then you would make a list of everything you can like know or remember that. So his list was other people's moms, which was kind of a strange list. And a person named Katie, a new mom, stuck out to me at that time because I had read her obituary that morning. She was my friend in high school and we parted ways. And this was a story in Southern Indiana. Her husband found her at work and stabbed her while her daughter was in her arms. So this poem is called Resulting from a Writing Prompt About Other People's Moms. And it starts with an epigraph from Sergeant Jason Cullum from the Evansville Police Department. And it says, there's some debate as to what the child will actually be able to recall as she gets older. Our hope is she won't be able to remember vividly what happened. Dudit Desk says, list as many as you can. I list 11 names before I write your mother's. My wrist stops flicking. Pen halts, eyes lifting. The assignment is to write every image you remember. Hadn't heard a word of you until the morning's headline. Knew you turned a tide when your mama died, but thought most of the rumors were just the eggnog talking. He called you spaz at school. You were awkward armed and scared of dust balls. I remember your faded photo of a home. One time you put an old sock in your hair and wrapped rubber bands around the bun. Your mother came home worn from work, a matted cattail standing along the pond. You helped my brother learn how fingers fold together. You said kids with special needs have nothing wrong with them. They're just sad. Katie, I'm so sorry that man stabbed your heart, plunged cold metal into your chest, stole your breath, that you had to run coughing froth into the road, your work apron, a ripening plum. What images will your daughter remember? How blood stuck to her eyelashes as she tried to look away. All right, I'm gonna leave us on a little bit of a happier note. Thank you all so much for your time. I'll be sticking around for the rest of the show. I'd love to talk to you about some of my work as an educator and poetry and all this cool stuff we're doing in Indiana. It's been a while. I don't think it's probably been over 5 years since I've done a reading in Chicago. So virtually, I am very, very happy to visit you guys. So I wanted to read a poem about my mom. If I can share a quick story, since we're doing like VH1 story hour. My mom tells this story that when she dropped me off for the bus at kindergarten, that like I had my little backpack and I was all excited. It was like my first day of school, and the bus came. I just like shot off, and I guess my mom thought I was gonna like turn around and say like, "Bye, Mom. I love you. Thank you for preparing me for this very important moment in time and everything in life." But no, I just like got on the bus. I was very, very excited, and I can see my mom like just like crumpling in the road and crying. She said she cried so hard, and I was always like that. I was always just like, I would stay late to do speech and theater and journalism and band, and that is just how my life always has. And I've gotten better at calling and getting back home as I'm a little bit older now. But when my mom dropped me off for my undergraduate program in Western Kentucky, she asked me to leave my dorm room when she was moving in so she could make my bed one last time. So like, I just thought of that when I wrote this poem. This poem is called Space Monkey. Mr. Monkey, my mama chimed, "Don't pee in your spacesuit this time." She'd already endured my days of dangling from her vine-like legs and swaying from the fancy curtains, slinging scat at my father and brother, hooting and beating our chests in an attempt to dominate another lower order of life. "My little monkey," she said affectionately as she strapped me into the shuttle. I pursed my lips, trying to reach her, my opposable fingers grasping at air as she slowly shut the safety hatch. She said goodbye, and the thrusters propelled me past the pull of gravity. Now that I'm on the dark side of the moon, I wonder if she's still perched there at her worn-down radar tower, carefully watching my approach, hoping I've calculated the right degree, half hoping that I will break away to nebulas where she can never follow, or wishing I would crash into a collapsed star, a place where time stands still, and through wormholes, be transported back to the earth and into her arms. Thanks you all so much.
Wow, thank you, Adam. That was wonderful. I wish everybody out in YouTube land could hear applause, and we could say one more time for Adam, but I'll say it now. Thank you so much. Oh, and now our second feature of the night probably doesn't need much introduction, but I will do that anyway. Thank you for being here tonight, Kim Addonizio. Kim's latest poetry collection, just out in paperback, is Now We're Getting Somewhere. She's the author of 7 other poetry collections, 2 novels, 2 story collections, and 2 books on writing poetry. The Poet's Companion with Dorian Lau and Ordinary Genius, as well as a memoir, Bukowski in a Sundress, Confessions from a Writing Life. I'm sure many poets have used some of those books as kind of the basis of their work. Her awards include fellowships from the NEA and Guggenheim Foundation. She lives in Oakland, California, and teaches live Zoom workshops. And tonight, here she is, virtually live, Kim Addonizio. Thank you for being here.
Okay, thanks for having me. And Adam, good to hear you and to read with you. As everyone was doing the open mic, I was writing things down and I created a little poem out of everybody's words. So I'm going to start with that. And Sarah started with praise, so it's a praise poem. Praise failure, Tulsa and miniskirts, clodhoppers and crescent wrenches. Praise aging body at the convenience store, where the unhoused stare into the rain with shattered hearts, where water rises and cows bellow their love in the field. Praise Wisconsin, praise the bejesus out of the suburbs as we rush downstream. Praise the dead, the boatman, the light left on, the mini fridge, the days in, Sunrise, Alabama, sarcoma. Praise failure yet again. Praise the feast. Take care of us, mother. Take care of us, mother. Take care of us. That was a little mashup of some words that struck me from everybody's reading. I don't know what kind of poem you call that, but so I'm going to read from this new book, Now We're Getting Somewhere. And this is the first poem in the book. It's called Night in the Castle. I'm not sure what to do about that scorpion twitching on the wall. Maybe I should slam it with this book of terrible poetry, or just read aloud to it until it dies of a histrionic metaphor bleeding out on the ancient stones in a 5-octave aria. If I get a little drunker, I might try to murder it with my sandal. I gave up on mercy a while ago. That's what happens when you live in a castle on an artist's grant. You look at the late afternoon Umbrian light smearing itself over the tomato vines and feel entitled, like an underage duchess whose husband has finally died of gout, leaving her free for more secret liaisons with the court musician. She might even have poisoned the Duke, the lecherous shit. It's hard to remember what life was like before this, and I don't want to. I want to stay here and poison the king next. I want to be a feared and beloved queen, ordering up fresh linens and beheadings, locking up bad poets in their artisanal hair shirts, torturing academics with pornographic marionette performances. Meanwhile, the scorpion is still there twitching slightly, reciting something about violence and the prison of ego. And I can hear the clashing armies on the wide lawn outside, sinking down into history and then standing up again. This is in response to Whitman's poem, which I actually love, which begins, I think I could turn and live with animals. They're so placid and self-contained. I stand and look at them long and long. Beautiful passage from Leaves of Grass. But this is a poem that kind of plays devil's advocate. Oh, Walt, you were wrong. They aren't placid or self-contained. I just watched a spoonbill make carpaccio out of a frog, and crocodiles dining on wildebeests trying to cross the Maro River. And it begins with an O, just an O. It's wrong to say O in poetry these days, which makes me want to have a loud orgasm right here in an unashamed animal way. You must have been looking at some cows on a farm, but who wants to live like that? Standing around in a shed with sore tits, shitting claustrophobically, or standing around shitting and being tortured by flies and eating grass. I know you like grass, but it's no fun to be a pricey pre-hamburger ruminating with no TV. If you'd had a cable subscription, maybe you would have felt differently, watching Nat Geo Wild and those exhausted herds on the Serengeti. Walt, I still love you, even if in this instance you might have been a victim of the pastoral tradition. Let me tell you about animals. The green anaconda swallowed the young capybara whole. Oh, 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 Walt. Capybaras are the largest rodents on Earth. I don't think I'd survive as an animal for long, even a large one. Look at the elephants. Imagine being murdered and becoming a doodad or furniture inlay. Walt, I actually like sweating and whining about my condition, hot flashing and bitching in my cream satin sheets, lying awake drunk and weeping in the dark. I definitely like to own more things. An electric knife sharpener, for instance, would come in handy for carving up the less fortunate on special holidays. I want to be lucky as long as I can. Walt, I don't think death is luckier or leads life forward like you said. I don't think I'm going to grow from the grass you love. I'm just going to have one last blackout in a dirty pink lace dress and be eaten by tiny, ugly, legless larvae. Speaking of animals, this one's called Wolf Song. This book is broken up into sections. That was from Night in the Castle, and this is part of the section called Songs for Sad Girls. Wolf Song. At the party, they're all wearing swan suits. The fur on your back thickens. You're slicked against the wall of the flow-through kitchen between your ex and his girlfriend. You'd still like to devour him as you once did, but you are trying to become human. Though also you are starving, sick of scavenging nuts and berries, gnawing the occasional biscuit. You want to take down a caribou. You want to tackle a moose and rip open the flap of skin swaying beneath its throat and share it with the next wolf to trot by. But here there are no wolves. Through the kitchen window fangs the moon to fuck you up even more, to send you slathering away, past the condo community, past the lit houses, into the deep woods. Where there's a moon, there's always a deep woods. This is called Small Talk. This is, when you find yourself trapped in a tedious situation. Small talk. Let's skip it and get straight to the rabid dog at hand. This is some weather we're cowering from. Would you please touch my face like a blind person? I feel like a giraffe in a parking garage. Let's skip it and get straight to the death smell coming from behind the refrigerator. Can I offer you something more subtly evocative of the underlying theme of your life story? How many self-important wounds do you have? Everything you say is tiresome. I'm going to walk away slowly and not look back. Now we're getting somewhere. A lot of cheerful pieces in this section. This is called August. What I want, I was in the south of France on the Mediterranean and very unhappy. The way you can be unhappy in a place that's gorgeous and you're supposed to be happy in, which makes it worse, right? Because what's wrong with you? August. What I want is to slice open its stomach and watch its toxic sun uncoil into the sea. Cicadas seething in their asylum in the trees. All this frenzy and scorch, and at night music hammering from the outdoor bar where the dancers blindside each other with longing, and the long tide slopping in and away, barnacles on the piers clinging in the literal drift. Whatever it is in me that crawls like a wasp over the remains of a picnic, used napkins blown over the senseless grass, tell me how to kill it, how to let it go out like the last disaster of love, last boat guttering in the wave swell. The cicadas were really the things that made me crazy, because the only piece I could find was in the morning before they started in the tree out the window, or by closing these heavy shutters and boiling myself to death in the hot room, where at least it was quieter. So let's see, I wanted to do this one. Give me a second here. I don't really know where anything is in this book even now. This is called Archive of Recent Uncomfortable Emotions. This haircut makes me feel ugly feeling. The however much I drink, I can't pretend it's love feeling. The strangled by the foul and ugly mists of vapors and iambic pentameter feeling. The everything I write is shit feeling. The I'm sorry I gave you those blowjobs and did you not understand the meaning of reciprocal feeling? The it's not my birthday anymore, I'm just older feeling. The looking at x-rays of my teeth feeling. The something died in your eyes and I can smell it feeling. The literary recognition might be just another shiny object feeling. The darkling I listen and right now I think it would be kind of cool to die feeling. The Keats is dead feeling. The Leonard Cohen is dead feeling. The blank and my blank are also quite dead feeling. The I am Jean Reese getting blotto in a dismal room in Paris with black specks on the wall feeling. The maybe I'm just getting blotto feeling. The trees are no longer my friends feeling. The my friends are no longer my friends feeling. The once I was a 19th century Russian novel, but now I'm a frozen chicken entree feeling. The I can always return this feeling in the prepaid envelope provided feeling. The I am the prepaid envelope feeling. Couple more here. This is I got into writing some mono-rhyme 14-liners for a while. This is one of them. It's called The Miraculous. The band starts the song over, the rhythm's still wrong, sounds that will never alchemize to music. My brother's new liver is failing. There's someone's loud lover swearing to Christ in the bar to get sober, but the moon is being smothered by the trees and there is no ladder far enough. I go down to the mouth of the river, ugly with waste, yellow foam and trash, a tanker crawling the horizon. What does it bear, oil or chemicals? I was taught a man could walk on water, that if I listened and unhinged my heart, I'd hear a presence stirring the air. And I do. God, the murderer, making things perfectly clear. Let me just check. Okay. Checking on the time here. I want to do, I think I'm going to do just two or three more. I think everyone probably here probably knows and loves Keats, because what poet doesn't? And you probably also know that he died in a house on the Spanish Steps, and that he was accompanied to Italy by his friend Severn, who was an artist, who was with him until the end. This is called Still Time. In Severn's letters, Keats is still alive, though coughing blood. One day he's better, then things look very bad, and if you stop reading, he's still lying there, calmer again and clearer, before they take his body out and burn the wallpaper. In books you fall in love with, you always slow down a few pages before the end, but then there you are, with only the back cover blurbs that say, "This story will make you cry," and maybe an outdated photo. When you photograph the famous fountain, the water stops moving, but water never really stops moving. Your plush lion swirled away, your parents floated off, okay, but also that wine stain on your shirt only looked permanent. After the horrifying bats in the cenote, little gold-flecked fish appeared. You finally stopped sobbing in the bathroom at weddings. You can't go back to 1821 and invent streptomycin, or stop the poet's kindly doctor from bleeding his patient. But you can climb the stairs to that room in Rome and see the flowers on the ceiling, the same one Keats held for weeks in his fevered gaze. That's as close as you can get. Go home. Your miserable bitch of a neighbor is gone, carried out, and never to return. It's kind of a silver lining poem. Good things happen sometimes. I'm gonna read two more. This is one, this is a pretty new one. And I was a presenter on a BBC radio show about wildfires, and got to spend the night in a fire tower at Buck Rock, which is up in the Sequoia National Park. And as part of it, my producer asked me to write something about it. So the show is called California Burning, by the way. I think it's still up. It's on BBC 3 or BBC Radio 4, one of those. Anyway, so this is what I wrote. And it, weirdly enough, talks a little bit about Wagner's Ring Cycle, which you may know is a very long opera. And it's called Exit Opera. The shield maiden waits in the wings. The opera goers wait, shifting in their seats. Out in the forest, the ember waits in its cigarette to make its black mark on the world, not content to ravage a few rolled tobacco leaves. It wants to show it can murder more trees than the last bitter fire. In the sequoia grove, in record heat, tourists wait for a chance to stand inside an enormous burn-hollowed tree, while the bark waits the years it takes to grow over the scar. Legions of charred trees, legions of kids clambering over rocks. In the troposphere, the next giant pyrocumulonimbus cloud waits to be born from its gassy parents. Once the opera's begun, you must wait for what feels like eons for Brunhilde to deliver her aria as she throws herself on the funeral pyre and everyone goes up in flames. Once you escape a wildfire, leaving everything behind, a little void appears beneath your heart and lodges in your ribs. Again, you must wait. If you see lightning, listen for the thunder to tell you how far or near you are. When Milton went blind, he felt useless, but then he decided it was okay to stand still, to abide. Look at the trees, who are patient, who suffer us to touch them. And I'll close with this one, which is the last poem in the book. And there are a lot of poems in this book that I think of as being for girls and young women, especially, and women in general. And this is one for sort of You know, all the self-harming girls who've ever been within a mile of thinking about not continuing with life. It's called Stay. So your device has a low battery and seems to drain faster each day. Maybe you should double your medication. You might feel queasy, but also as if the spatula flattening you to the fry pan has lifted a little. So your breath comes out scorched, so what? Inside, trust me on this, there's a ribbon of beach by a lake. In the sand, fragments of a fossilized creature resembling a tulip. Back in the Paleozoic, online wasn't invented yet, so everyone had to wander alone and miserable through the volcanic wastes, or just glue themselves to a rock, hoping someone would pass by. Now you can sob to an image of your friend a continent away and be consoled. Please wait for the transmissions, however faint. Listen, when a stranger steps into the elevator with a bouquet of white roses not meant for you, they're meant for you. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Powerful, powerful work. Thank you, Kim.
Also,
And I
Kenny
wish it-
Hobbs just won governor of Arizona. So there's that.
Oh, wow, bringing us the news. All right.
Yeah, somebody just texted me.
Oh,
Wow.
this, it was just confirmed?
Yeah, she just got declared the winner.
Fabulous.
Good news.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we can all celebrate.
Exactly.
Wow. The well, anyway, that was two great readings by Adam and Kim. Thank you so much. We've got a few minutes. If you still have a few minutes, Kim, I know you had a time crunch, so I want to be cognizant of that.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay for a little while.
I'm just Kim. First, I'm just interested. You said that this new collection you felt like is for for women and young women. Did you have that in mind as you put the collection together, or how did you write the poems and they just started to fit in that scheme?
They just started to fit, really, and then I just became more aware of it, and it was just a happy thing that happened. That a number of poems turned out to be that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to getting a copy. The you mentioned some young people doing self-harm, and Adam, you sound like you run into that a lot in slam camp, or was that just something that you mentioned in one of your poems, or do you find that young people are coming to poetry to heal as much as anything else?
Sorry, was that for me or?
Yes, that was for you. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
In the middle of that, I said, Adam, you talked about it. Yeah.
Well, I know that was truthful for me, and I even have a short poem about, I think what, at least for people who manifest their mental unwellness through physical self-harm, I think that there is something they want to say inside, at least that was true for me, that to make that pain more tangible. And that's also similar to the act of taking that and crafting a poem, which is also a physical thing. So I found that to be a substitute for my own growth when I was a young person. And I was also kind of a pain in the butt as a student. So I feel like I am, reaping what I sowed when I was younger. So I sometimes really like working with kids who might be struggling with other teachers or with other places of learning, and they're just looking for something tangible. And I think poetry can be that kind of thick description they need.
Yeah. I think that's true. Kim, I know you do workshops. Do you have you done many workshops with younger people and youth in a similar way? I'm just asking that question.
I haven't actually, no. I don't really work with younger people.
Mhm.
I
The,
appreciate them, but I don't really, it's not really where I want to be. I don't know how else to say it. I just I'm not a high school teacher. I'm not that person, you know.
Yeah.
So my students tend to be, um, pretty wide age range, but not usually below, 21 or something.
Yeah, I can identify with that as workshops I've taught are usually
But I
older.
do feel I write for those. I get emails a lot from high school girls and very young women who say, thank you so much for your poems. And I mean, so I feel like I'm writing for them. I'm just not, I'm communicating with them that way. I'm not really
Mhm,
physically there. And I think that's a great way to connect. It's the way I connect to poets that I love.
mhm. No,
Yeah.
it does. That's very true. It's always amazing the people that react to your writing. I've found that, and I'm sure you have too. People react in surprising ways that you don't always expect. Um, and I guess as we go through life and we all get older, no matter how hard we try not to, it seems that that we affect our readers are affected in different ways. Our readers change over time. Kim, have you felt that, or did you feel like your audience is coming from the same place as they always have?
I don't know, actually. I don't really know.
Yeah. The and well, this is changing gears just a little bit. Adam, I love that concept of the slam camp. Did were you one of the people who came up with that, or did you come to it somehow?
Yes and no. So I really needed something like Slam Camp when I was a kid. I can't. When I was in high school, Slam was just beginning to be a thing. And I loved poetry and had an outlet through poetry, but it was just kind of different than what I wanted to write about, than what was really like appropriate in school and what was kind of celebrated in those spaces. And Slam was this thing on like HBO and like at Lollapalooza, and now you can like see it everywhere on TikTok and Instagram. It's really kind of normalized. So I had to get my outlet through like speech and debate and all those kind of things. So I was in graduate school for my master's degree, and I was contacted by the director of a speech and debate program that I knew. He was in charge of summer camps, and they were looking for more revenue for their program. So they were like, hey, we can sponsor this camp, take a little off of it, and Ada can do some programming. So it was in Minnesota, and I didn't want to just kind of tromp on that area. So I invited Sierra Mulder, who is a really, really amazing poet, if you've not heard her, and then my friend Cuban Hernandez, to create this camp. And that's kind of how it started. Even though we were asked to do it, it was kind of we made our dream into a camp. It's a week long, and kids are fully immersed in it. So then it just kept growing. We had 7 students our first year. Our largest year, we had 80 students in at one camp. And that was a camp that we had kids from 30 different states, all over. And some kids are part of like these slam leagues, like called Louder Than a Bomb is one that's in Chicago. And some are just like, they just like these kind of poets they see them on YouTube and on Instagram and stuff, so they want to come and be with their poet heroes. And when I was a kid, you couldn't really do that. So we've had a couple of years of hiatus because of COVID and just grad school, but we're looking to start the camp back up in 2024. So I am transitioning from a new job to do more spoken word programming, and that's one of our goals for next year is to get the camp started back up again.
Great.
Eric, we've thought about having one for the big kids, but we're gonna start with the teens again first. It's good to see you. Eric, I think I hung out with you like 15 years ago, but I've been talking with Eric online ever since then.
I'm sure you know Mark Smith, or you know who he is, but I mean, to both of you, Kim and Adam, but he recently got a medal. He was knighted by France, and part of what that award came to him for was how slam, which he's credited with inventing, has brought so many young people to poetry. And I thought it was great that, the country of France actually recognized that fundamental contribution of what slam poetry has done for young people. And I think back to myself, which when I was in high school, which was way before there was any such thing as a slam, I felt like I was the only poet around, and I was hiding it. And I don't know, I throw this over to Kim, who I think when I looked at your bio online, I think we're probably about the same age. So did you feel that way when you were young? Or, I felt like I had no support in high school as a poet.
I wasn't really, I didn't really start writing till my late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So by that time, I didn't really know anybody who wrote poetry or anything. I really didn't know anything about it until I went to graduate school for it. So that was when and then of course I had a group of partners in crime. All of us were very passionate about poetry and talking poetry and starting a reading series and starting a literary journal and doing all the things that you do as a sort of fledgling poet trying to spread your wings a little bit and get involved in things. So so that was really what it was. That was where I found the other people who did this really strange thing that I didn't really realize people did. Yeah.
I think that's kind of the key thing, is that it's not a strange thing anymore, at least, or maybe it's just that we know a lot more poets than we did back
Exactly. It is. Yeah. We're still a strange little backwater of the culture.
Yeah, I know. When I was in grad school, the poets were the only ones having fun. Everybody else was too serious about finding an agent. So,
yeah.
But,
You know what? I am sorry. I'm gonna have to go because I've got to get some dinner before this Zoom call.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
This long, but thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for being here and listening. Really appreciate it, and great to read you, Adam, as well. Slam Camp sounds awesome.
Thanks, Kim. It was a treat to read with you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Adam. You were great features, and thank you to all of our open mic poets tonight. It was really a wonderful night, and we'll be posting the recording on YouTube. So we hope you'll enjoy it again, see everyone again. So thank you all. And next month, Traveling Mollies will be featuring Pamela Uschuk. I want to make sure I say her name right, and William Pitt Root. Some of you may know. So they will both be our features next month. And as always, as we've been doing for about 20 years now, we're the second Monday of every month. So you can find Traveling Mollies. Thank you all for being here, and we wish Nina Corwin well. She'll be back with us next month, I'm sure, and hope she's feeling better.